from coast to coast.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Berbice 99.5 FM. Kaiser Radio.
It is 13 hours 36 in Guyana and right across the Eastern Caribbean. A pleasant good afternoon to whoever you're joining us from at this time. Welcome down to this, your Friday, May 29th edition of the COVID-19 and Elections Watch. Let's quickly remind you that you can find us on 99.1 FM in Demerara and Essequibo, 99.5 FM in the Berbice area, online at KaiserNewsOnline.com, via our Facebook page, Kaiser Radio, and we're happy to introduce one of our newest streaming platform. You can head across to YouTube and you can stream us live there also at Kaiser Radio, or for quicker access, we encourage you to download the MyTuner app or the Radio Garden app. It is now time for COVID-19 and Elections Watch, and I'd like to say good afternoon to our host and co-host for today's program, Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist Leonard Gildarie. Gentlemen, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, dear Josh. You sound very happy that today is Friday. I'm not sure why you should be sounding so very happy, because you got to work through the weekend like myself. So I think your happiness is a little misguided. What you should be is very enthusiastic like myself, that we have our duty to the people of Guyana.
Indeed.
And of course, enthusiasm is also coming from his other colleague there, his partner in crime, Kevin Smith. Want to say welcome to these guys. I've been there. We can't do without them in our studio here on Saffron Street. And of course, myself, Leonard Gildarie, can't do without my co-host either, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. And the reason for that is that we have been here with you for almost 3 months now. And Yog, it is day 24 of the recount. It's day 88 according to my count. I could be wrong. Since when we had elections on March the 2nd, and so not very nice numbers when you're looking at it. Out there on the road, it's pretty wet, so I want to say across the country to our people in Guyana, be very safe on the roadways if you are driving. If you are farming, I hope that you're staying safe. If you are shopping or whatever it is that you're doing, get out, get in as quickly as possible, wear your mask, be safe, practice social distancing. This is not over with. We've touched the 150 mark, so I want to say good afternoon right across this coastland of ours, wherever you are. And of course, if you're from overseas, a good day to you. Yog Mahadeo, how are you doing, sir?
Very well, Leonard. Indeed, it is raining. And as you mentioned that with mask, I want to remind everyone a wet mask is no good.
Yes. And so we got to be very, very careful. Yog, as the days go by, while we should be heartened at some countries, the news that is coming out that they seem to have it under control. In Guyana, it seems to be on the reverse. As of yesterday afternoon, the news is not so good. 11 new COVID-19 cases in 24 hours. The numbers has now moved to 150 cases, positive cases, accumulatively, collectively, if you want to say it. Since we would have started testing, I rather suspect the numbers are more. What is worrisome, Yoga, and what you and I would have been discussing the last week, more than a week or so, is paying attention to what is happening in the other regions, region 7 and 9. Region 9 borders with Brazil, and Brazil got this big problem. It's moved into number 2 spot. I think it's likely to overtake the US in terms of the number of cases. And what is so worrisome about this 150 cases is that they have several cases now that's coming from the hinterland region area. So people are actually, there seem to be an indication as if people are bypassing whatever is happening. We still don't have all the details yet, but something is happening in the hinterlands with very little monitoring there or access to areas. We should be worried by that. But let's get right into it. A good afternoon to all, and welcome to the special edition of COVID and Elections Watch. And we're going to bring to you what is happening today. Yog, it's day 24. There's some critical decisions to be made. Do we have any idea whether GCOM, the commission is meeting today to decide whether they are going to add more days to that 25.
Yes, as of yesterday evening, we were told that the GCOM, the commission met to assess the reports and the requirement for more days and workstations, of course, and that the meeting would continue today. As of today, we do not know, and you are right. We have 865 boxes remaining. 865 boxes remaining. That has to be over the next 10 days. They would have to do work at approximately 72 boxes per day, Leonard, to get it done within the next 10 days, providing, of course, GCOM does the extension, which I think it's almost automatic. Their problem might be what numbers to extend it by. Now, when we look at the narrative or when we look at the words they were using to describe this, the June 16th, I was a little 16th was a day that they had given themselves to make a declaration. You see, finishing the count does not mean immediately upon finishing you are going to get a declaration. The commission will have to meet. Description Vincent Alexander gave yesterday was quite spot on, because he, in his usual style, he sought to educate everyone that after the recount, they on the CEO's report and then make a declaration or make a decision as to the declaration. So it's still got a way more to go. The good news, as you have said, is that today being 2024, we still got the need to establish a new timeline.
Yes, absolutely. And there's that front page of Culture News I'm looking at right now, Yog. And there's a very big picture. Coordinator of the task force for the Health Emergency Operating Center, Operations Center, Dr. Colin James, is the one who would have signed the denial for the task force for GCOM's request for more recount workstation. They're saying that based on the COVID-19 regulations, adding more workstations to the 12 that is already there is gonna see a health risk, and they can't take that chance. It's gonna create issues. They already would have raised issues by the number of persons there at the conference center there at the Artichon Convention Center. Yog, is this something that the decision taken by the task force? Is it something that would have been expected? Because we don't know whether there were more space. Could they have done it? Do we know?
Yes, I think the commission, upon its request to the task force, did not make a blind request. It would have, in fact, examined its space that is available and provided that given the space, there is this likely space that can be available to increase the workstation. So the commission did not make that request, just blindly. It is strange that, look, there are a number of protocols in place at the convention center there. One, everybody's temperature gets checked as they enter. Everybody's temperature gets checked. Two, everybody wears a mask and they observe social distancing. Three, there are wash stations, there are disinfectants, there are things on every desk. So, in other words, whatever is happening there is as if even better than what's happening in the rest of the country. The protocols in place, the disciplines being observed. So I find it passing strange that one or two more workstations could not have been approved. And it boggles the mind that educated decision could not have been made given the stringent conditions upon which people work there.
No, and that's a very good point, Yog. But I want to ask you, if on 12 workstations we have finished 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, I think they're going to go to 6 and 7. Mm-hmm. We have not gone to 8 as yet. I think 9 is going to be completed today, I think I was told. Mm-hmm. So what you have there is 4, 6, 7, and 8. Let's assume 7 and 8 are pretty small by comparison. You finish that off. is there any projections based on the 12? You just use a figure there, I think 7 to 2 boxes
Correct.
per day based on what we have here. We've been averaging about 90, I think, yesterday or so. But can't we, if you do the 90, could you remind me back again, how many days are we looking at?
10 days. I did that. I did the calculation that if GCOM was to say that within 10 days they want the recount finished, it means that you would have to count 72 boxes a day, which is very, very within the range that they have been counting over the past week. They have been counting at over 80 per day over the past week or so. So it's well within the range, and it could be under 10 days. But of course, you have to cater for some unforeseen circumstances and so forth. But certainly, it is our view that within the next 10 days, you could see this thing being finished. So 10 days would mean, you're looking at today being the day 24. So day 25 after that is 9 more days after tomorrow. You're looking at probably next weekend, early the following week, you should be complete.
Absolutely. And so if you're looking at that June the 16th day that they want to have the declarations being made before that, it's doable. Fusion over declarations and so on. We would have had Ramesh Prasad, Shaz Ali, and of course Delon Moffat last evening talking about a number of things. Yog, based on that, in a nutshell, what was the I would have listened to Ramesh, and he's saying that those objections, he don't believe that it's going to have any kind of impact on what is likely to come. But he also would have made some interesting observations going back to 2011, 2015, those figures there. What are some of the takeaways from that that you could recall that stood out at you last evening from that interview in room 592 on Kaicho Radio?
Yeah, those are interesting numbers, and I think we need to continue looking at them, Leonard, because what has to happen? Remember that the 2015 elections, when APNU AFC got into power, was probably a difference, a net difference of about 4,500 votes. So what you're looking at here, and that gave them the 1 seat advantage, the 33 over 32. What you're looking at here is how that ratio, how those numbers are going to change. Whether the PPP-C or APNU AFC are going to be able to show through this recount that they have indeed attracted enough votes to form a majority in Parliament. Remember, APNU FC had a 1 seat majority, and that 1 seat majority came into serious question when Mr. Charandas crossed the floor on the no confidence motion. So a 3 seat majority, for example, is going to give a stronger position to any of the political parties in the National Assembly. What is also important from the last discussion is, the percentage of voter turnout. And it seems to be that the voter turnout in Guyana over the last 2 elections to now has been fairly consistent, and has been consistent where people are expressing themselves at the polls. So that has to be taken in consideration with all these anomalies that are now coming up. And I'm hoping that early next week, Leonard, we can have another similar discussion where we are taking the anomalies, we are taking all of the queries raised, and we are saying, okay, what if? So next week early, we're going to do that what if all these anomalies were proven? What's the worst case scenario, or what's the best case scenario, depending on how we're looking at it?
Well, absolutely. So let's pay attention for the next couple of days as to, I think this weekend is going to be very, very critical when it comes to this recount here. I am saying there's a lot of worry that you hear expressing over what is going to happen, whether this recount is going to be completed or not. I don't see any reasons for it not to be to continue. What are we paying attention to with regards to this whole COVID-19? And it it seems to have a bearing as to what is happening with the recount. Let me tell you why I say that. This morning, we understand that the police were on Regent Street, and that would come against a backdrop, Yoga, of there being a move to tighten up on people moving around the country and so, and rightfully so. However, I think the police and the authorities need to get the act together when it comes to knowing what are the essential businesses or not. One of a group of policemen reportedly went into a digital store this midday about an hour or two back, and they told the store to close. I think this is Regent, either Light Street. I think it's Regent and Light Street, I understand. And they told them to close, and the people said, well, wait a minute. We are an essential services and we are allowed to open. And then there was some back and forth, and the police would have left. Whoever would have went to them with them there. We understand that the police were there. So Yog, I'm not sure if there's a movement to tighten up or so. You hear people calling and they're expressing worry as to the impact this would have on the recount that is ongoing. I'm not sure at this point in time we could even venture to say that there is going to be an impact. There's two different things. However, that is what the people are saying on the street, and we don't deal with rumors, we deal with facts. As of now, we're safe to have any more recount. Based on the projections that we have here right now, we have about 10 days on that. We want to apologize for, there seems to be a little internet issue that is happening. It's been going a couple of days in this Charlestown area here, trying to get that fixed. But in the meantime, Guyana records 11 new COVID-19 cases in 24 hours. Number involves, it has moved to 150 cases at the moment, positive cases, and we've seen some new cases, especially in the region, the outlying regions in Region 1 and so on. So we're paying very close attention. When you go to the next door neighbor, what is happening with their elections, because we're paying close attention. There's Ibautas, that is the president, incumbent president of Suriname. His party, the NDP, is in trouble. They've asked for a recount, and the recount is being considered at the moment. As of now, we don't have any idea whether it has been approved by the election authority there, but he is lagging behind his number of seats that he would be getting based on the votes. It has dropped tremendously, so it's likely, based on what we've seen here, he is going to lose the presidency unless he pulls a rabbit out of the hat, according to reporters over there. In the meantime, this is coming from Ananandlal, and he is a candidate for the People's Progressive Party, and he's saying that there's no legal pathway for GCOM to annul the elections. No legal pathway for GCOM to annul the elections. We're going to take a break for about 5 minutes, and we're going to be back in a very short while. Just bear with us.
And just before you go, Leonard.
Yes, sir.
Just before you go, so I think there's you would have gotten it there too, but I want to take the pleasure of sharing it. Breaking news: GCOM has set June 13th as the deadline to complete the recount, and 3 days later for a declaration.
Well, when we come back, we are going to make some details known to the people. I think that is a good news as we have it there. So we're going to be back in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Kite Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kite Radio.
Unleash the truth in Room 592. Room 592 every Monday to Friday from 19 hours 30 to 20 hours 30 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo and senior journalist of Kite News, Leonard Gildarie. Room 592 on Kite Radio, the radio with a difference.
Start your morning off the right way with some dose of love. Hey, I'm Joshua Van Slykeman, inviting you to join me right here on Kite Radio every day, Monday to Friday from 9 to 11 hours for the Indian Morning Love. Join us as together we will go on that love journey. The Morning Love, only on Kite Radio. Kite Radio, the radio with a difference.
Feel the love on the Late Night Love Stop with me, Kevin Smith, alongside Selecta Chino, every Tuesday at 20 hours 30 all the way to 21 hours 30. The Late Night Love Stop on Kite Radio.
And here goes, I represent for 99.1 Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.
Stay in the know with Kaicho Radio. Join us daily, Monday to Friday at 13 hours 30 for COVID-19 and Elections Watch with senior journalist Leonard Gildarie and Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Join us as they keep you updated on the latest news on elections 2020 and the COVID-19. COVID-19 and Elections Watch, only on Kaicho Radio. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome once again to the special edition of Elections and COVID-19 Watch. We want to say to you today, as we join you back again, be safe on the road. When we took a break, we would have told you there's some breaking news coming out from GCOM there, and I put you over straight onto my co-host, Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Yog?
Yes. You're hearing me, right?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, we have some news coming out that GCOM would have set June 13th as the deadline to complete the national vote recount. And 3 days later, it hopes to deliver or to declare the results. So that is the timeline, the expanded timeline would have been approved. And they have also limited themselves to 3 days after receiving the report to make a declaration. So that is the latest news, I think, coming out of there, Leonard.
Thank you very much. And so, Yog, that is indeed, we finally seeing as if GCOM is waking up from its slumber there. I'm not sure what was happening the last couple of days, why they always have to be waiting on this 11th hour to make these decisions. These decisions should be made like a couple of days. I'm not sure how do we do these things, We wait everything, it seems, not only GCOM, all the decision-making processing, and wait until the last moment, not proper planning go into it. And so logistically and otherwise, you're pushing everybody. Any case, we have that good news. So June the 13th, that is when the declaration, there's going to be some key decisions here. So, Yog, so it looks as if there's going to be no new counting stations, there's going to be that 12. So I believe they feel comfortable that at least 72 boxes is going to be counted a day, which is the average need to be made to complete the rest of the boxes, which is 800 and something boxes left to be counted.
Correct.
So as we speak right now, let me tell you, we were talking not too long ago. The police are on Regent Street. They're closing businesses. Over the last couple of days, this morning I was somebody called and says it's like Christmas Eve in Georgetown, and it has been like that for a couple of days. So I said, what do you mean by that? And I said, no, people are just shopping, doing the things as normal. This whole COVID-19 measures and so social distancing, while some places are being monitored and so on, other places as if the police doesn't have the power or they don't have the enforcement personnel to really enforce people to do what they're supposed to be doing. We know there have been lots of talks by city council and the police and so on to basically clamp down in these areas, key areas like the Stabrook Market, Border Market, and other areas. But today on Regent Street, several stores closed, I'm being told. They would have gone to the digital store. It's not essential, then it was determined to be essential and therefore left open because they have to sell the credit. But there were other stores selling maybe clothing and so on that was ordered closed. The only thing, the essential services on the order that was made by the Ministry of Public Health would be a couple of things like pharmacies, supermarkets that's dealing with food, you would have food stalls, hospitals. Those are essential services, Harbour Bridge, Berbice and Demerara. So, Yog, one of the big questions over the last couple of days too, we would have been debating about why should we allow, or the people were asking, why are the oil industry and the gold industry being allowed to operate while we can't operate as well? And I'm not sure if you have had a time or some thoughts about it. We would have had some discussions on it, but just to remind some people what would have been in the head of the authorities when they would have said allow these the sector, the mining sector, as well as the oil sector to remain open.
Well, number one is pure economics. One of our viewers yesterday that called in did remind us all that at the end of the day, the country has to be run with some source of financing. This is why you find GRA has continued to be open. That is the GRA collection centers and the licensing of vehicles and so forth. So they need to continue getting or getting revenue. Sorry. So mining, however, has a unique, different uniqueness rather than compared to retail service in Regent Street or Rob Street, because the mining sector would have its employees within there, and they don't necessarily traverse the public transportation, using public transportation or mix and mingle too much with the population. They're there, they do the job. I think they have a period of time when they rotate. So the risk factor may be less. But certainly the economic factor is heavier than anything else. Leonard, I mean, when we had the discussion, we had the discussion about where would the government find monies from, for example, to build that fancy spanking place at Ocean View Hotel and other works that it is doing to pay themselves, for example. All the ministers continue to get salary and so forth. Where are they getting the monies to do all of that? So obviously revenue generation needs to continue. Now, I remember though, what baffles the mind is that I remember Mr. Nagamoto's statement a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, when he said they are looking at relaxing some of the services because people need to eat, people need to live. And so they were looking at relaxing some, but however, no formal releases would have been made. And presently, it seems there is confusion as to who can open and who can't open. The police themselves would have been interpreting who is essential and who's not essential. But Leonard, if you shut down the telephone outlets, the telephone companies' outlets, how are people going to top up? How are people going to be able to maintain their communication links with each other? One of the things you do with COVID is to stay home, which means that you communicate via phone and internet. So they need to rethink some of these things, and we probably need to maybe discuss with there are 5 policemen that are out there closing down the place. Their interpretation of whether the top-up centers would have been essential services, probably what we need to discuss with them.
Yeah, absolutely, Yog. And you know, in today's newspaper of Kiteshore News too, there's a very important notice. You would have recalled over the last couple of weeks, we would have been talking about assistance for our people. You cannot have anything like COVID, a pandemic of this magnitude that is affecting our people in Guyana and not have any kind of help coming towards them. And you know that in the beginning when this pandemic hit us, the Civil Defense Commission would have started some hampers sharing. They put a halt on it after there were complaints that not everybody was benefiting. And then there was that big announcement that the National Task Force was working with the National Data Management Authority to populate a list, to make up a list of people, the vulnerable people of Guyana who are going to be in line, the priority to get some kind of assistance. Well, there was that notice, I think, yesterday that they are going to go even further. The authorities are going to be utilizing the services of the University of Guyana students to assist in compiling this list. And how are they going to do that? They're going to have persons who could call on some numbers, and there are a couple of numbers which we're going to throw on screen. We're going to probably have to ask Kiteshore newspaper. We're going to ask management here to probably have it repeated, the story here repeated for tomorrow, and maybe I could ask for Sunday as well, because a lot of persons are interested. How can I get myself on a list that is going to get some help towards themselves. And there's several numbers. Let me see, 1, 2, 3. It's about 3, 6, about 15 numbers here, cell numbers. And we're going to try to, who's looking at us on Facebook or on YouTube, we're going to throw those numbers up. But you could call those numbers, and they're going to walk you through, or if the answer that is, we haven't put it to a test yet, they're going to walk you through the application process and take your particulars and tell you what to do next. So the UG students, if you need help, there's some numbers, and I could probably call it very quickly. It's important, Yog. 615-9507. 615-9507. Then you have 615-9495. 615-9990. 615-7839. This is toll free, Yog, this particular number here. 615-7839. You don't have to pay anything to call that. 665-2271. 615-9507. 615-9727. 615-7839. 264-2690. 265-6202. 227-4410. I think this number here was what they had published, a single number. 227-4410. 223-1747. 232-0952. or 337-2667. I think we would have put up there on our Facebook page, and you could see us on YouTube there as well, the numbers that you could call if you're looking at us. But we're gonna probably try to give it to you again a little later. But at this point in time, Yog, I don't know why they don't make all these numbers here toll free. I'm sure that they could probably move to do that, but only one number there that's toll free. Do you believe that this assistance that we're looking to give to the people is really going to filter to them, because time is running, the clock is ticking all the time?
Well, Leonard, I wanted to suggest to you that maybe one of the things we can do is to reach out to the COVID task force to have somebody come on the program. If they say no, I mean, they say no. But we should reach out to them, because one of the problems we have is that a lot of people out there feel that we are not extending invitation to the politicians, for example. We have been consistently extending invitation to persons from all sides of the political divide, all sides of civil society, and those who accept the invitation, we normally have them on. So with regards to this thing here, Leonard, I want to say that I find it worrying. You see, the messaging seems to be distracted. So on one hand, there are people shopping around at all the markets. The markets seem to be continuously flocked and stuff like that. On the other hand, you have on a Friday afternoon, sir, on a Friday, you have the police walking through Regent Street to shut it down, right? So, why it didn't happen on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? On a Friday it happens. Then the other thing that one has to ask, coming back to the CDC now, and they will give up, how long is this thing going to take? This is more than 2 weeks now. They're saying they're compiling a list. How long is it going to take? Are we waiting for people to be dead and to be dying and stuff like that before we finally complete that list? And finally, why is the CDC not going to the NDCs? The NDCs have direct, live, intimate knowledge of the various communities. They should be interacting with them. If you're building a scientific database now, it's going to take a very long time, because we know all of our databases seem to be filled with dead and migrant people.
And yes, you're right, Yoga. And I would be very interested to know what is the level of coordination between the various regions. Because you might very well see a big campaign going on in Region 4, maybe in a specific area. But let's take Region 4, for instance, big area. You have the East Bank, you have the East Coast, up to Mahaica, the East Bank, until maybe Timeri, and then you go to parts of Suzaik there. But here the problem that you have with that. You might have problems going on in Diamond, gathering, but you see people going on Regent Street. Region 4 is not only about Regent Street. But then again, by the same arguments, the entire Guyana is not Region 4. So what is the police, who's probably coordinating what's happening down in Regent Street, how are they coordinating? I'm talking by the police management here, or the operational arm, with the people in Region 7. Which other areas are they targeting? Is there a big board that they have on the wall and says, look, these are the hot spots. Today, I'm going to put 5 ranks in Regent Street. I'm going to put 2 in Diamond. Let us talk to the commander over in Region 7 there. We're going to put 5 people down in Front Street in Bartica. We're going to put 2 persons down in the Cayuni Mazaruni. Are they doing those levels of coordination, and how is it working? And so I don't know. But what you do know is that Regent Street seems to be where COVID-19 hotspot is, and that is what it's telling us. Because I'm not sure. I live in Diamond there. I can't remember the last time that I was stopped at a roadblock going home in the night, going home in the evening after work. It's more times after 8 o'clock. Shouldn't be saying that, but let me say that. The fact is, I can't remember the last time that there was a police roadblock on the stopping and asking, what are you doing in the road? I want them to be there. I don't mind answering and telling them that I'm working at Kaiser News, and as such, I just finished work and I'm heading home. But I don't see that, so I'm not sure who's really coordinating, who is really monitoring. Whether we just doing it because my boss told me from Big Dam to go down to Regent Street, and I'm just doing it to show the people that we're monitoring. There seems to be the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Correct. And not that alone too, Leonard. I want to just quickly come back to, I need clarification. You said that you have gotten the information that they're using university students to help them build this database. How are these students helping?
No, I'm not saying helping to build a database. I think they have their work in, but what they're doing, if you're at home and you don't want to come out, there's some several numbers here which we would put back in the screen in a very short while, and I'm going to ask Kaiser News to publish back these numbers too. It's important. People need to have help, and we're going to do what we do as a newspaper, what we've been doing all the time, do a public service here. But if you want to call in, you call in these numbers here, and they're going to walk you through the process. They're going to probably ask you, Yo, have you lost a job in the last 3 weeks? Where were you working, at the Regent Street store, or you were working up in Monrepo there? Do you have 5 children? Are you a senior citizen and you're the head of the household? There's some specific. Let me tell you what it says here. Those who would have applied under the new criteria, only individuals, households currently benefiting from public assistance provided by the Social Protection Ministry, and those who apply for such will be considered. Those who would have applied for public assistance and are waiting a response as well, they would be considered. Those who would have suffered a loss of income due to COVID-19 would be among those as top priority as well. And of course, I said the last one here, if you are a senior citizen and you are the head of the household, or those persons suffering disabilities, those are the persons that they're targeting. So if you have no means of coming out your house, or you don't want to come out your house, there's several numbers there, about 50 numbers, which we'll be publishing again, which I just read out, and it's on our screen here now, that they would have put up. And the role, to answer your question, the role of the UD students is basically to answer the phone lines, I rather presume, and they're going to be assisting you, walking you through the systems, making sure that you fill it out properly so you could be considered for such assistance. That is how it explains. That's how I read it.
That's good. And the other thing about it too, Leonard, at least, look, they're doing something. They're trying to engage people. I would like to encourage them to reach out to the NDCs. There are a number of groups, Leonard, in this country, a number of groups, you're part of our group that would have been distributing help to citizens across the country. They could also reach out to these groups and say, hey, you guys have been going around giving help. Can you help us identify some of the areas in the country that badly needs this help? So what I find a little worrying is that we do not have We do not have this country mapped out in terms of our persons that are working in whatever area. We don't seem to have the kind of information that one would have thought that a country should have to help make critical decisions when disasters and so forth strike.
Yes, and that is indeed so, Yog. I go straight to this report here by the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Shamdev Prasad. Guyana records 11 new COVID cases in 24 hours, and this number would have moved to 150. Yog, you would have been extremely worried or in the initial stage of when this pandemic would have hit us. Should Guyana be worried, especially when you look at other countries? With the exception of Brazil, it seems as every other place would probably have hit the peak. But when it comes to the arguments that maybe there's a second and third wave, and Guyana has not even gotten past the first wave. In fact, we seem not to have hit our peak yet because of our lifestyle, our attitude here. Should we be very worried?
Well, Leonard, look, it's not just lifestyle and attitude. Let me tell you this. Guyana has how many cases? You said there are 150, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, let me share this with everyone. Guyana has 150 cases, and Guyana has done 1,500 tests. 1,500 tests. Just keep a note of that number. Trinidad has had 116 cases, 116, and has done 3,115 tests. Barbados has had 92 cases. Barbados did 5,201 tests. The more tests you do, the more you're able to corral this, the more you're able to identify the threats within society, bring them in, isolate, treat, and then open up back. Until we get the tests done to establish baselines, you and I have been saying this every day. We need a baseline number of tests to be done every day for there to be an appreciation of what our numbers are and whether we are increasing or we are flatlining. But I just want to repeat that. Guyana with 150 cases has done 1,500 tests. Trinidad with 116 cases has done 3,000, double the amount of tests. And Barbados with 92 cases has done over 5,000 tests. It just shows the testing that is needed. And you know, I just want to share with you some of these same numbers. If you look at the US, we know the US is on top, and the US has had all of these things. You know, look, the US has done 16,500,000 tests. Brazil has
million?
done 800.
No, I want you to repeat. How much tests has the US done?
16,500,000 tests.
Unbelievable. And we got about 1,500.
Good. And Brazil. Now, why am I raising this? Because interesting. Look, the US, as we speak, they are now discussing and they are now opening up back. They're choosing which services to reopen, and they are doing a slow reopening because they have established a baseline. They have a number of tests going on a daily basis. Now, we know Brazil is a danger area because it seems to be spiraling. Guess what? Brazil has only done 871,000 tests. Population-wise, USA is 330 million. Brazil is 212 million. 100 million less. But the phenomenal difference in the amount of tests show you the importance of these tests. So Guyana has to step up the number of tests it is doing to make sense, to draw a trend or a pattern from this whole thing before we can make any educated decision about whether we are increasing or we are decreasing or whatever.
Yes, and so Yog, just before we open the phone lines, I saw a video this morning, and it just drove home the point again. And we'd have to continuously hammer home this point to the people. You know, having a ventilator's tube down your throat is not that very easy. They're saying that if someone who has experienced or would have gone through using a ventilator for this COVID thing, they probably, their lives, the physical nature, the whole being, the body is probably never going to be the same again. They're probably never going to walk again properly, never going to breathe properly again. And so that should be enough reason or reasons why we as a people should do all or pull out all the stops to ensure that we protect ourselves. That if we have closed down the country, it means that we got to ensure that we do all to protect ourselves. It doesn't make sense that we come in, wear a mask, take it off for half an hour or 2 hours, and then we go among the, expose ourselves in such a way. Or we go into the market or into the minibuses and say when we go home back, we practice in social distances. It's got to be something that's going to have to be in our DNA or our very way of life until we get this over with. This is not something that's going to go away in a very short while. I'm looking at the news here that is coming from The Economist with regards to Brazil, and this happened a couple hours back in terms of what they're reporting. Brazil's losing battle against COVID-19. Yog, and this is not something that is easy. The mayor and the other authorities are coming up against the government for their lack of action or their inactions when it comes to tackling this entire issue of COVID-19. While we would have been taken up with our elections here, which is something that we've been railing about for the last couple of weeks, we have to hold our people or authorities, the government, accountable for their inactions. And if one person is dead or died because of somebody not paying attention, then the government and the authorities have to be held accountable for that. We haven't even started to have that conversation yet because we're so taken up by elections.
Correct. And the other unfortunate thing, Leonard, is whatever we say, it is deemed as if it's a political statement. It is deemed as if it's an attack against persons. And that's what happened when you put politicians to run technical areas. COVID-19 is a technical thing. It's a health emergency. Why are politicians running this? And this is why we are where we are. And when you and I speak about it, we are told, you have been told, I have been told, we are attacking the politicians. Why are we attacking them? But you have set yourself up. Where are the tests? Why are we not? And you find that has happened in Brazil. The COVID, and Leonard, look, you and I have spoken about this. You go to Malaysia, you go to Singapore, you go to India, you go to many, look, Barbados, go to Suriname. Wasn't it an amazing sight yesterday to see the Suriname people in that stadium? I mean, I shuddered when your colleague there from the media showed that backdrop with people assembling in the stadium. Nobody was wearing masks and they were all kind of huddled together. And I was shuddering because I can only think of the dangers they're in. But guess what? Suriname seems to have gotten a good grip on things there. Suriname, I mean, they have the guy yesterday was full of praise with the way the government handled it.
And that's a good thing, and that is coming from a journalist who has been very critical of his government and so over the years. But we should look, and you've raised a very good point there, Yog. As journalists, as media, this morning I saw some video there of Adnan Lal, who would have been so eloquent on our show the other day, talking to a reporter. People lose their cool sometimes, and the reporters have been coming for a lot of scalding criticisms from especially the politicians. Various section depends if they perceive you to be sitting on whether they think that you are People's Progressive Party or you're from the other opposition or from the coalition side. Depends who is standing there. They would be they have been recorded as being very rude, as being I think Jagdeo would have come in for some criticisms. I see it this morning. I think Adnan Lal, a couple days back, you would have seen Aubrey Norton. This is not good enough. Not because you asked a particular question that you were sitting on one side of the fence or other. There may be exception, and maybe rightfully so, that you could point to one, two reporters being that way. I'm not sure whether it is our place, the place of the politicians, that is, to questioning the fourth estate where they're standing when there's so many questions to be asked. The mere fact that you're standing there are going to be questions that are going to be asked. It's our duty, it's our mandate to do that. The people expect nothing less, Yog.
Correct. But Leonard, let me tell you something. The fourth estate, the media will always come under question. Not necessarily for your independence. All over the world, media get attacked because of their independent views. But here, let me tell you what's happening in Guyana. In Guyana, under the PPP, the media was deemed to be vultures and so forth. Under this current government, you guys are deemed to be as worse as anything else. Here's what's happening. The government of Guyana has its own media. You have the Department of Political Information, you have NCN, you have the Guyana, whatever you call it, Chronicle, all of these places. So what happened? When the Guyana's president or the Guyana's prime minister sneeze, NCN and Chronicle gets a cold. They have to be at the beck and call. They are creatures of their political masters. So what happened is that the ministers and the government people feel that you have to be on their beck and call because they got a set of them at their beck and call. Look, you go to the Department of Political Information, the DPI website. What you're seeing? Yeah, I want to repeat it. DPI stands for Department of Political Information. When you go on their website, what are you seeing? You are seeing statements made by Mr. Alex Norton. You are seeing statements made by them. And what happened to the rest of the statements from all other stakeholders? These people are earning our taxpayers' money. The entire Department of Political Information is being paid a salary from the taxpayers, but they're only carrying selected persons. So they're creatures of their government. They're creatures of their masters. And so the masters have gotten used to when they say run, you must ask how far. You mustn't even question if.
Well,
That's what's happening here.
Well, let me make it very clear. This program here will not be dictated to by any politicians in Guyana. At least not me. And I think you could probably talk for yourself, Yog Mahadeo, but not me. Nobody can come in and dictate to me to what it says, because that would be against everything that is ethical, that is in this profession.
And Leonard, what I find strange is that some of these same people were shouting down in 2015, 2013, 2014. They removed the total budget from NCN and gave them $1 as the annual budget. These same people in government now did that when they were in opposition. The same people who are now heading the Department of Political Information had their moral ground. Now what's happening? Now we find they're happy to be chorus boys and chorus girls, and there can't be like that. I was surprised. I must say, I was surprised one time when I had a discussion with Mr. Donald Ramatar. This is recently. And I asked him, what's your take on the state media and whether state media should continue? In this day and age, he said, yes, state media should continue. So in other words, you were saying it's the same half a dozen of one and six for the other. The same problems you will get if the government changes, because you're going to have state media that will continue to waste taxpayers' money. And that has to stop.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there, because when it comes to the spending of taxpayers' money, if you're not spending it like your own, then you have a serious problem. You're in the wrong seat. You're not supposed to be sitting there. Don't waste the people's money. We could use that money to do so many other things. Do you know how much money it takes to make a hamper? How much of waste that we have had in this country? But we're gonna head to the phone lines in a very short while, Yog. 226-7453. 226-7453. We want to hear from you what is happening in your community with regards to elections and COVID-19. And wherever you are, I know it's a very wet day. We want to say stay safe. We want to repeat that. Stay safe here for myself, Leonard Gildarie, and of course, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and our entire crew here at Kaicho Radio, Kaicho News. Make sure that you wear your mask. If you're driving on the road, do not speed. We have so many things that's happening every day that life is gone. It's another life wasted. That should not happen. I saw that young man that died a few days back after you have crashed into the trailer. very prominent family, and that would have thrown his family into a state of shock. And you have so many other cases like that. We could do without those accidents. We could do without throwing caution to the wind. Let us save ourselves. Let us be a little more careful, not only in the roadways, but how we live with regards to COVID-19. Let's protect ourselves. I think there's a caller online. Yes. Caller, you on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Young.
Yes, sir.
Now, from the inception of this recount, we had 25 days was gazetted with a revisit to the 25 days in the fourth week. Now, today is the 24th day of that 25 day, the 24th day. We gone past the 11th hour now. Now we make a decision that this recount gonna finish at the 13th of June, which by itself is 3.5 months after we vote. That is what we have to accept in Guyana here right now. When we could have put system in place, put additional stations, put system in place, get more boxes. If we could count 120 to 125 boxes per day, we could have completed this thing by now. But you know what? They have a saying, and GCOM did really well in deception. They have a saying that if you not get anything, you have to accept anything. And that is what I sit here in amazement. Listen to you guys, how you just put it over and you accept that the 13th will be the end days for the recount, and by 3 days after, we're going to have the declaration of the results. Now, if the recount finished by the 13th, why do we need 3 days? Well, what can you explain to me why you're using this 3 days for? Because it's not like you have to look at this declaration in the entirety. You have many declarations from many districts that are finished already. So they could look at that, so you just have the last set of counts coming in to look at that. Why does it take 3 days? For me, I say the 3 days is for injunctions and court battles to start to kick in. That is why I see. But I'm going to tell you one thing. Guyanese feeling the squeeze. Guyanese feeling the squeeze, or the majority of Guyanese, because I don't want to include my APNO and EFC brothers and sisters, because a lot of them siding and they enjoying what's happening here. But I'm going to tell you this, the pressure pot is on the stove, and the heat is on, and pressure is building in this pot. I'm telling you this, and let people be aware, the pressure is building. And let we hope GCOM deliver by the 16th of June, because we have an end date now. And the pot don't have to explode, because it won't be nice. I'm telling you this. I know the feelings of my brothers and my sisters. I know how they feel in the sugar belt. I know how they feel in the previous sugar belt for all the estate where they closed down. And we're giving them time to do what they have to do. But don't let the pressure pot explode. Read between the lines what I'm saying. You see what happened the day after this nonsense happened at Ashman Building. You see what happened in all parts of this Guyana. It's going to be worse. Explain to them, let the common sense prevail. Let them do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, there. And I think the caller raised two issues, and before I probably ask you to come on there. We would have spoken about making those last-minute decisions, and somebody would have likened it to you building the toilet when you're ready to go do you know what. So that's one. With regards to the 13-day and the 16-day, when you finish the recount, there's a couple of things that needs to be done, and maybe you could correct me along the way. When you finish on the 13th day, you have to prepare there is that document or the declarations that would probably have or the certificate that would have to be completed and then sent to the chief elections officer, and the chief elections officer would then forward it to the commission in itself. And I think something would have to be done up to notify the chancellor. Is that how it's going to work, you, based on what you understand of the order?
Yes. That is how they have to allow themselves some time to look at any potential last moment queries that can raise. I think we can feel the caller's concern.
Yes.
As to the open window, and however, I would not I would not agonize over it for the following reason. Everything so far has been very transparent. one of the things that has happened through this recount process, Leonard, without wanting to, as we say in Guyana, big up ourselves, we have been here every day and we are sharing the information openly every day. There are a number of persons, three gentlemen was in room 592 last night, sharing information openly. So everything, by the end of the recount, the entire country will know exactly what's going on, and they're not going to depend on a PPP website or on a APNO website or on Jagdeo or Harman. They're seeing and getting the information for themselves. So whatever we all gather at the end of 13th, they cannot do anything other than to use those same numbers. Here is another thing that we need to keep in consideration. Remember, the recount is not just the counting of the ballots. After the counting, they're going to have that count. They prepare a statement of recount. They are now getting to the tabulation area. The tabulation area is going to prepare the certificate of tabulation. Those matrices, I would presume. So when we say June 13th for the recount to finish, I would presume it meant for the tabulation to finish, for the certificate of tabulations to all be wrapped up and handed, be in the custody of Mr. Lowenfield. The question I think that is on everybody's mind is Mr. Lowenfield and his deportment at the end of the process, and how much are the observers involved after the certificate of tabulation is completed and handed over to him. So in other words, Leonard, the question I have is, are the observers' job finished when the last certificate of tabulation is signed off? Or are they going to continue to observe this recount process, which means to the end of the election, which means to declaration?
Well, good question, and that's what we don't know is that we'd probably try to get a handle on that. But there's another caller online. Yes, caller, good afternoon, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
The caller that called before, I don't like the way he threatening the public. That is one. If you observe, he said the pot is boiling, and he referenced to Barbies, what appears in Barbies. That is totally wrong of him. What people have to realize, and I think you should mention some things on this. From the beginning, with Mingo, the PVP take GCOM to court, and after they take GCOM to court, the process stopped, and then they start back again, and then Clarence Singh, the charge, Clarence Singh, he sends Clarence Singh everything to court as well. Now, they even had an injunction against Clarence Singh, not an injunction, contempt of court or whatever, and to Mingo. Now, the chairperson for GCOM says that they're going to do a recount. And they're doing a recount from 1 to 10. It started. I think the Guyanese people should allow the recount to continue, especially for the PPP, because I hear Nandalal said that GCOM do not have the authority to get people death certificate and get people from the immigration officer, people who gone out of the country. That is wrong. That is totally wrong. He's threatening GCOM there. Now, I believe that GCOM have the right to uplift any document that they want to make this process real good, so everybody will be happy with the recount. And for where a vote is concerned, all they have to do is to send a number. take a number, because if the opposition, APNU or AFC or PPP, says that that person was not in the country, they will know, because it's going by a number, and the number have a name. All they have to do is to get in touch with the post office, and they have to get in touch with immigration and give them the name of the person, and let this process go ahead. And don't worry, Nandalal, it will continue as with the person said just now, the caller. It will continue on and on and on. The court matters. It appears like the PPP love a court. They must wait. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one thing before, probably, I think, Yog, you might want to take that one. But it is not GCOM that has been dealing with death certificates. I think it has come up with the coalition representatives who are there. But Yog, maybe you would want to take it from there.
Well, Leonard, I think, from one perspective, GCOM has quietly made an announcement in establishing the June 13th date. It has virtually made an announcement that whether it pays heed to the investigations of those observations, all of that must be confined to three days. Right? Mm-hmm. So that tells us that there may have been deliberations as to how they plan to tackle those things. Mind you, we have been told that Madam Chairman would have written requesting Mr. Harman, who I think is the head of his party in this case, requesting them to send the proof or the assertions or the proof for those allegations. What we learned from Mr. Norton yesterday afternoon or yesterday sometime was that APNU AFC do not have in its possession the immigration records. What they have is that people told them these people migrated. So what they're hoping is to have GCOM call on the authorities to provide the migration information to confirm whether these people were in country or not for the day of the poll. Now, mind you, if you have 10, let's just say if you have 10,000 observations made, it means you would have to get 10,000 immigration records sequestered. You would have to get those 10,000 records called for. Somebody has to sit and compare them. Then you have to now prove or disprove whether the person was in country or not. That is inconceivable. Mind you, a lot of narratives have been said, oh, migrants voted. Migrants voted. They left the country and they voted. Migrants doesn't mean that a person should not be on the list. If you're a citizen of this country and you were on the list, nothing is wrong for you to be on the list. The fact that you voting, do know, Leonard, is persons did come to the country because the March date of the elections coincided with a number of things in Guyana, including PAG-1. A lot of people would have traveled to Guyana during those times. So it's open for discussion, I think. But GCOM, to cement this point, GCOM has confined itself to 3 days in which to deal with all of these things.
Well, that would be interesting to see how that works out. There's another caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Gildarie and Mr. Yog. My contribution to this thing is that the only people that is not happy with this recount is the APNU AFC supporters and the cronies that got there in Parliament. Those are the only people who ain't happy about nothing going on. So to that caller just now, he should go look in the mirror. Seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me say a couple of things here. We all have this radio here, like the newspaper, we've always allowed it to be the people's voice, and that nothing is going to change with that. But when you see other countries, Yoga, and this is Gildarie speaking now, not the newspaper person, not the radio person. We should not be seeing ourselves as APNU. We should not be seeing ourselves as PPP. We should be seeing ourselves as Guyanese. And I'm not sure whether that has any context in terms of what would have the callers who would have been calling in here. Please do continue to call us. We welcome everything. But, let us start seeing ourselves as, let us examine who are the enemies here, and let us start looking ourselves as one people, because I think more and more as we see what has happened on social media, as we see some of the rhetoric that is coming from the politicians, and you wonder, where does Guyana stand in all of this, Yog? Where is our mother country? Where's the protection? Where's the love that we should be feeling for Guyana? I'm not seeing that. And it really, really hurts. But let's go ahead. There's another caller in here. Yes, caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gildarie. Good afternoon, Dr. Mahadeo. I have a few observations, and I'm just going to list them quickly. One, if a ballot has no 6-digit stamp, it is not valid. In 2001 election, at Division 622, 114D, the PPP lost 300 votes at the general elections because the ballot had no 6-digit stamp at the top half, but twice at the bottom half. There was a request for a recount. The PPP was represented by lawyers, Mr. Ramesh Rajkumar. The PNC was represented by Mr. Raphael Trotman. The recount proved that those votes were invalid, but the PPP had over 300 votes at the regional elections. Now Mr. Alexander wants to change that law in this election. That's one. Two, no reporter is asking Mr. Alexander of Mingo's figures or declaration. And three, I heard both of you sometime during the week or last week that the police force has improved. But gentlemen, can you tell the listeners what the force did at these places? One, at Ashman's building. Two, when the Guyanese were protesting at High Street on March the 13th. Three, in front of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the return of the Carter Center. Kindly respond.
When we were talking, let me answer. I was the one that spoke about the police force and the improvement. We were talking specifically about the structure of the force, and I could give you a couple of instances very quickly as to why I would have come to that conclusion. During the PPP's time and going forward into this force, I've never seen so many police officers being dragged before the court, being sent on leave as investigations continue into behavior, whether it's corruption or otherwise. Two, when it comes to the police force, the structure, the administrative structure and so on, I would have been speaking specifically about the fact that you had a commissioner for a very long time, Larry Lewis, I give an example of, where nobody could have gotten any kind of promotion. And then there seems to be very little functioning when it comes to the Police Service Commission and when it comes to the promotion of the police force. You would have gotten the introduction of several deputy commissioners. What you're talking about is specific instances, maybe somebody give a direction that they have to go into Ashman's building. Does that mean that there hasn't been an improvement on the entire police force? I might not subscribe to that. I do believe in the bigger picture that there is an improvement with the police force. Yog?
Yeah, I wish to thank that caller for the information of those 300 ballots. I certainly did not know that, sir. And those pieces of information forms and informs our future. It forms our history and it informs our decision making now. So thank you so much. I appreciate that, Leonard. And I must say, yes, one expects that precedents and the rule of precedents would follow, so that guides our decision now. It doesn't mean, of course, we shouldn't improve. With regards to the police, I think, Leonard, you and I have been on the air, And last week, sometime you and I deliberated the need for a complete overhaul, a complete look, a complete commission of inquiry into these elections. We wanted, and one of the things you and I called for in calling for a commission of inquiry is who instructed the police to do what they did? Who instructed the police to disallow the commissioners from accessing the office of work? So all of those things, and I think, I would like to ensure that we continue to garner public interest in calling for these things. With regards to the caller's comments about Mr. Alexander's opinion on Mingo's declaration, there are two things I would say. One is that we did, that night a week ago when we had Mr. Alexander in room 592, we did ask him about the import of Mingo's declaration on GCOM website and stuff like that. And he said that he would wish to be guided by the courts as to what to do with those numbers. Subsequent to that, yesterday, I think, or day before, we had Mr. Anil Nandalal, and he said that, because of the fraud the contempt proceedings, both of Mingo's declarations are null and void, and they cannot be depended upon by GCOM. Of course, those are two politicians from two sides of the divide. So that's my take on that, Leonard. And I wish to quickly go back to one of the things the previous caller said with regards to the whether there is potential for a court order to stop this swearing. Though I'm not a politician, I may be politically correct in saying this. Everybody has a right of access to the courts of Guyana. Everybody has a right of access to the laws, to the courts of Guyana. And so whether that is a potential, if a learned judge feels that that is a potential, then, it's something that they would have to deliberate. I must remind you that it was no other than Chief Justice and Chancellor of the Judiciary, Desiree Bernard, I think that would have done that court order to stop the swearing in of Janet Jagan so many years ago. So there is precedence. Yeah, there is precedence that was attempted, and we all know the narrative that happened thereafter. But I wish to remind everyone, Chief Justice Desiree Bernard was neither perturbed nor annoyed with the ultimate action that transpired.
And that's history for you. It's a history from the man with those 300 votes. Let's go straight to the line. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
I like to good afternoon to you and Dr. Yu. I like when this PPP government's turning into office. I like a complete restructure of the Guyana police force from the top to the bottom. And my suggestion is this. You didn't get two ways in that. The PPP already win the election, and all them hullabaloo, what is coalition weapon right now, it is needed. Because when they claim that they win the 2015 general and regional election, the PPP had overpowered them simply and quietly. Why now? The PPP won the election, and there is a whole pack of garbage, nice, with them left, right, and center, who dead, who migrate, and a whole pack of things. When you go in a polling station to vote, when they go through the list, your photograph is there, your address is there, and they identify you. Your finger is stained. One more than one. The PPP already won the election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yog, any comments? I think he's made it very clear.
Yes, that is something that I think we are looking at. One of the things I wish to mention here, Leonard, is that the media, you ladies and gentlemen of the media, I think what has to happen now going forward is the vigilance that has been placed upon the last government, the PPP. Obviously, it has continued, and the vigilance has been placed on the current government, and that must continue into the future. Leonard, just a quick clarification of something we said earlier. I wish to make this a public statement. when you're talking about dead people or you're talking about migrants who voted, I want everybody to know, no one knows who they voted for, whether they voted, those alleged migrants and those alleged dead persons. No one knows whether they voted for PPP or AFC or ANOG or CG or any one of these. So that must be very clear. If you're throwing a query at GCOM to say, well, Leonard Gildarie is a migrant, GCOM has to now go through all the immigration records to see whether Leonard Gildarie's vote must count or not. But nobody knows whose number of votes it will affect. It could affect any side.
So I want to ask you, I'm not very clear with this, Yog. Going forward, is it GCOM's job to see, if I tell you that Yog Mahadeo is a migrant and is out of this was out of this country on March the 2nd, is it GCOM's job to go look at it, or you would have to, who is making the observation or making a claim, would have to provide the proof? Because she has written the collation to provide the proof.
Well, put it this way, Leonard. GCOM's officers and the party agents took an oath to run the elections on election day, and they did their job. So the first stop was on election day. The fact that every single person signed off on those elections, the president of this country, the attorney general of this country, the opposition leader of this country, and 100% of the observers, local and overseas, signed off on the elections for elections day. We know that. Now, if you are to show GCOM that GCOM did not do a good job on election day, after having received a vote of confidence, it means all you're proving to GCOM is you didn't do well on elections day. However, in my humble opinion, only the courts have the jurisdiction, and we were told the other night has an exclusive jurisdiction to vitiate or to nullify or to cancel or to declare an elections or to declare that another election has to be held. GCOM, I don't think, has the power to say, okay, cancel this election and we will have another election on so and so day. Remember, GCOM still has to go back to the National Assembly for funding. GCOM has to now redo a list. GCOM has to now use all these learnings over this recount to get itself right for another election whenever that is due.
So at this point in time, I'm not sure. So what would be the point? I think what you're raising there, what would be the point of raising these objections? The only avenue, to use the word from a lawyer, the only avenue out would be a petition.
Yes. And you recall when Mr. Leno Craig, and credit to him, when he was pressed as to, if you win these elections with all of these anomalies, will you guys accept the results? And I think he said it, and people beat him up, but he has a point. He said that nothing stops even a winning party from questioning the way an election was run. So I would want to say that all of these things that are being raised now is aimed at going to the courts after these elections to say, a court, we need a fresh election. But that is a matter for the court to listen, to deliberate, and make a decision.
Thank you for that, Dr.
But
Yog
not
Mahadeo.
right. To answer your questions pointedly, my humble view is that it is GCOM cannot now take all of these claims and say we are going to call off these elections. And final point I'll say that, remember, GCOM has limited itself to 3 days upon which it must receive reports, maybe query all of these things and make a decision, a declaration, sir.
Good point. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Gildarie.
Yes,
Yo.
yes.
Now, good afternoon again. Freddie Kissoon. I think it was just before 2015, we got two major problems in this country. 2015, you know what Freddie Kissoon used to do? Keep pouting and making a whole bundle of knives concerning young people standing up to the system. What we need to deal with presently is constitutional changes. And I wanted to know now, which angle we can be moving in to get constitutional changes, because this is foolishness in terms of two central ethnic races. I mean, yes, I live in a multi-ethnic society, but there's two ethnic races who just pushed the neck to the bad constitution from 1980, and then we got the backup. We could go into the Amerindian, how many, the 6 tribes, and we could name them, but I don't want to take up the time. My concern is now we need eyes for fights. I need people just behind my age and more effective people, like people who look like this fellow, like I mentioned it the other day. We need a gun ratch. Yog spelled this on. Then I hear his phone cut off. I don't believe it. Whoever Yog was asking.
Could you lower your volume on your radio, please?
What shorty we got that these people ain't gonna be back in this angle. But my question now. These people to change the constitution, that we would not go back into this kind of direction. We say this is dangerous. They ship sailing in a dangerous direction. History could repeat itself.
Could you lower your volume on the radio, please? We getting a feedback, sir.
All right, sorry. I have the cell phone in a room. Yeah, but like I say, this is dangerous. We are dangerous waters presently. But it could change. But what we need to beat up on, the central concern must be, at this time as we speak, this constitutional change. You see, anytime.
All right, thank you very much, dear. Sorry, we're getting a terrible feedback here. We'd have to. Yes, sir. Our apologies, dear, to the caller there, making some very good points.
If that caller can lower the volume and come back.
I think he's somewhere inside a factory or somewhere, so
okay.
It is getting. But I think you would have heard what he would have said there, Yog. Any thoughts?
I heard a little bit, but I think that point, if it circumambulates around constitution, has to have a real serious, mature look at our constitution and make the changes necessary, or else we have no future as a nation.
Yes, I do thank you for that. And so we'll have to continue looking. You and I have been talking about constitutional change and what needs to be done. And of course, I've been calling, and you have been endorsing that to Yog. There's got to be some kind of inquiry into this entire fiasco of what we would call the March 2nd or the March 2020 elections. There has to be a commission of inquiry to see what would have transpired before, on the day in itself, and after, and who would have given what orders, and why did they give those orders. Somebody has to explain. People need to bring closure to something like this. So there's another caller on the air. Yes, caller, good afternoon. I think we'd have missed that call. Yes. So you're right, Yoga. When it comes to the Constitution, we'd have to continuously call in for reforms in that area there. Caller, you're on the air. Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you, Leonard?
Pretty good, sir.
Yog. Right. A quick thing. I just really posing this a little more to Yog. I looked at a program the other day, Globespan 24/7, featuring Dr. Beto, and this guy from the WPA, what's his name, Hines. This man speaks so much about the little post-election violence that we had just after this 2020 elections, right? And he has created a big hullabaloo over that. What I don't understand, and I'm pretty sure you'll remember this, Leonard, because I know Yog is living out of jurisdiction just like me. You can remember a little girl was raped and chose to do oral sex on Main Street, and everybody was laughing. Subsequently, that child killed herself. Not one of the good person, and I didn't want to say black people, but I know I will, ever condemn that. Another girl was also forced to do oral sex in the Acme studio, who subsequently killed herself again. Nobody speaks about those things. But a little violent that the Indian people who thought that, well, we have had enough, we voted for a government that we prefer, and now people are going to speak this election. That's the only discussion coming from mine. And another thing, I looked at a program, and I'm sorry if I'm a little aggressive here, but my emotions are running high. I looked at you and you did an interview with Ram Japan, and I was quite surprised. I know Yog, his professional ethics will kick in, and so do you, Leonard. But some of the questions were so soft to that guy, I was a little angry. I'm sorry, man. You guys need to be a little more stronger, especially with Ramjet and people who are creating these havoc in there. Thank you very much, guys, and have a good day.
Thank you very much for that call. Very pertinent points indeed. Let me address with regards to the way that we would deal with our guests on this program. Yo could probably answer for himself. We treat all guests that is coming on Kaicho Radio, and even on if they come into the newspaper in itself, in a very respectful manner. When they come here, our job is not to attack them. We're going to try to ask the questions as they come. Nobody is, we don't consider anyone to be any sacred cows. We don't protect anybody here. We don't subscribe. I don't subscribe when I think the radio and the newspaper, I can speak on behalf of them. Don't subscribe to any political party. We don't have a constituency. I keep repeating this over and over, but over to you, Yog.
Sorry, Leonard, I would be unable. I didn't.
The gentleman, yes, the gentleman would have raised a point. He believed he says that we could have been a little stronger when Camarade Ramsden was on the show with yourself and myself. A little stronger, put him on the spot and so on. So I was explaining, at least from our sides, we're forced, we're mandated as a newspaper. We're being watched, listened to by the Ghana National Broadcasting Authority, and we have to treat with respect and dignity our guests that come here, regardless which political divide they stand.
Mm-hmm. I cannot disagree with the caller. I mean, it's his opinion that we ought to
right. I hear.
Yeah, that we ought to have been more firm with Mr. Ramjadan. However, one of the things that I think we all need to understand is that you don't necessarily bring somebody on to beat them up. You bring them on and you mention a few words and you allow them to say what they have to say. I know, for example, a lot of people felt that we didn't ask Mr. Vincent Alexander hard enough questions. But what we did was to ask Mr. Vincent Alexander such questions that would be that the following days, the other interviews we have would have proved or disproved whatever statements these gentlemen made. It is. I don't think it's. I would be comfortable making somebody feel embarrassed on our show or making them have a laugh over other people. So we try to find a ground upon which we allow them to make certain statements, and then we can take it from there or the other. That, whether it was the same call, I heard a snippet. Somebody was talking about the election-related violence of many years ago, and I would like to say that many times. People forget the history of Guyana as it relates to election violence. And, I was quite amazed too, Leonard, that, even the president, when he spoke the other day, first of all, he went to a creature of his own party, and I did an interview with him there. And I'm using a creature of the president as a quotation from Mr. Desmond Hyde, right? When he referred to the General Secretary as his creature. But, Mr. President could have been magnanimous enough to refer to the election violence, that the cycle that would have followed Guyana in the previous elections when he was in opposition. But you cannot just isolate one or two events. However, on that note, I wish to say no violence is any good. One of the good things that's happened on this election is that we have seen a little bit of better maturity where people have not been acting in any violent manner. But the hate, Leonard, you and I have known the amount of attacks we're getting, not on social media alone, to our inbox. The hate that is coming is amazing. And I've called on people on social media, and I'm calling again. When you see these people post their racial hate, don't share it and make them popular. Take a snapshot, report them to Facebook, report them to the media monitoring unit, take an action or two by petitioning the court, and let us take condign action. Yesterday, I've seen a so-called person who was in the past elections, he was a champion for media freedom and a champion of morality. Now they're going on the opposite side and morality doesn't matter anymore. But what we do, we take note, and you cannot trust these people to ever come into leadership roles again. That's what we as the electorate have as the power within our hands.
Thank you for that. And there's a caller online. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
We're having a tough weather, but that's Guyana. Guyana is out of it. I like to make a point of making a point. The point is that everyone is entitled to their opinion, and we as Guyanese, the problem we have in Guyana is not politicians, it's us. As it relates to the callers that talk about how hard you should have questioned and what you should have done, the most powerful arm of democracy is not the media, it's not the government, it's not even the court, it's the people. These ministers visit every community in this country, and nobody gets up and asks them the questions that they expect the media to ask them, which is very, very foolish. And it should not be. If anybody wants to ask them, they need to ask them themselves, not the media, because the media has to be responsible. You guys operate within a certain ethics that you have to follow. As it relates to the recount, as I tell you, something else will be coming. My concern is that wherever we are heading with COVID, this is near almost the end of May, and we haven't put anything in the people's hands. I heard politicians say we didn't put the money in people's hands. But if you put the money in the people's hands, they're not going to put it on their bed, they're not going to put it on their pillow, they're not going to put it in their pocket, they're going to spend it. And that is going to help the economy at least to keep some wheels, if not the major wheels, the training wheels turning. So somewhere along the line, regardless of what we call this government or who they may be, they need to do something, and they need to do something now, because our people are suffering. And so we may end up with a lot of dead people on the list. It's not that they die before they vote. They may die before the recount happens or before something comes to them. Have a good afternoon, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. And that people on the list there. So, Yog, let me just make this point with regards to questioning and how to treat, because the caller is pretty right that I believe as people in this country we do not understand that the power that we have as voters, as a citizenry, when it comes to our politician. I think we don't even understand our role. We're the ones that put them in there, and when we start to understand that the people that we put in there are put there to serve us, though that's why they call public servants. There's a reason why they call that. So let's be very, very clear. When it comes to our vote, it's something that is very, very valuable. The second thing is, and when it comes to questioning, Yog Mahadeo is on my show, and I'm questioning him. He is caught with a bag in his hands coming out of a house. He's stolen something. I could ask Yog Mahadeo, did you go into the house? Did you steal something? If he says no, I'd have to take it as that. But the population is watching, they're listening.
Absolutely.
And they have the evidence in their hands. But they want to know that Yog Mahadeo says, I did not. But there's a camera, there's a recording, there's a video that everybody's seeing. There's a video that is being shown in the US at the moment that I think is Minneapolis right now. Lots of stuff, if you're paying attention to what is happening on CNN or other news media. I think a couple of reporters, media house representatives, were arrested over the last couple of hours because they were doing their job. But guess what? There's a video that's very, very stark, and another video would have come out to show what would have happened, what a policeman did to a citizen of the USA. And that has sparked some things to happen. We have protesting right now. We have looting in a particular state, and it is causing a lot of debate as to the issues of racism and so on in the US. But guess what? America has seen that video, Yog. America has seen that video. They've drawn their conclusion. And so we might not have to say that Yog Mahadeo or Gildarie is a thief, but at the end of the day, the video is going to come out and it's going to show it very clearly. And the people are not stupid, Yog. The people are very mature.
Of course, and at the end of the day, Leonard, is I said to a few persons overseas at a group yesterday only that this election, for example, is being declared from two fronts. One, people's perception, and two, Madam Claudette Singh. Madam Claudette Singh is recognizing that there is a big swath, a big powerful social media, people's perception, not of these elections, but of her performance within these elections. We can call, you and I can have our personal opinion of what Mingo did and whether he did right or wrong. But the public opinion, overall opinion of Mr. Mingo will be what will follow Mr. Mingo for the rest of his days. Look, everybody knows Leonard Kaichor, Yog Mahadeo, we were on the PPP's backs. We were critical. We were beating them up for every corrupt act that they did. You check my WordPress page, you would see all of the criticisms that is captured in time. Go to Kaichor News Archive, you'll find all the articles that attack the PPP, right? What had happened? I remember clearly somebody asked me from the PPP, why are you not attacking the APNU? This was within their first 100 days. And I said, let's give them the 100 days to do what they have to do. But after you were starting to see the famous, infamous stadium, and you're starting to see the cleanup, and you're starting to see all the corruption, then you started to speak up. But guess what? It comes down back to what you said. At the end of the day, one thing we can do as a people, you vote them in, you vote them out. You vote another set in. If they don't perform, you vote them out. A lot of people have criticized Kamala in Trinidad for her prime ministership during those years. You know, one of the things I like with what she did? She hired and fired a dozen ministers. You do something
I
wrong,
love that. I love that. That's true.
Yeah, as long as she receive a complaint of something, you're gone. Sorry, no apologies, you're gone. And here in Guyana, we find that the president has circled the wagon around his ministers. I think Donald Ramatara has a distinction because I think he had let go of Barry Ramsaran when those complaints came about the abuse. So that's one distinction. But other than that, I'm tired of hearing presidents say, show me the evidence. You're seeing it every day in front of you. We have to continue doing what we're doing.
And it's true. Perception is could be the model, which is could probably down a government and change. You could, there's a very old saying: you could do 100 right things, do one wrong, and see what happens.
Correct. But Leonard, there's another point I wish to quickly bring. I know we have a call on, but let me say this quickly. Look, it's the Carter Center that was instrumental in a change in government in 1992. It is the same Carter Center, international observers, let's say, international observers that, led to that change in 2015. Now to see the same people who are in office because of the work of the international observers and the scrutiny of the international community, they are now saying no to international observers because they certainly know what wool they want to pull over people's eyes. I've seen that the Prime Minister of St. Kitts Nevis has used the COVID-19 as a reason to disallow the Commonwealth, the OAS observers from going to observe his elections. And guess what? I'm seeing not all, but I'm seeing a lot of APNU AFC supporters say, well done, that's the way we should go. So you don't want international people to watch over your elections, but you want their money to help you when things are bad in your country. You don't want the press to call you out, but you want the press to call the other side out. Something has to be wrong with our way of thinking.
And thinking it is, I think there's a caller in line. We would have lost that one. But you're so right. We have to continuously talk about the power of the people, about what they have, that little X that they put every 5 years on that ballot paper, what it really means. And I think there has to be an entire education process over the next couple of years as we go forward. The write-ins, the columnists, and everybody would have to continuously tell our people that the people that you have in office, that you elect to office, they're nothing else than representatives, than your ambassadors, than a public servant, and with emphasis on servant. There's a caller online. Yes, good afternoon, caller.
Yeah, my too heavenly brother. Good evening.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, what I recall about this stuff, I just highlighted low and field. As the meantime, he ain't got nothing to do, brother. Why he don't check the account? By the time the end of the account, he got it at hand to give anybody.
He has nothing to do?
No, wait. I mean, the accounts are already there. He just have to put them together.
I take your point.
3 days to just check what happened in the night of the election. They could have given it next morning. It's the same thing. It makes no difference. All right? But these guys means to pull along and drag along, carry on this thing to the best, right? So that is all that they could do. So we have to load in that time. Because there is nothing more anybody else can do. So we have to go along with them and see what they would do. Anyhow, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, there, sir. And we could probably push in a couple of other calls. I think Mr. Lowenfield would be a very busy man. He has to walk up and down this 12 counting stations, but he also is liaising between with the commission and otherwise. But the caller do have a point. We should be moving this thing along. Let's get it over with and done. Caller on the air. So, Yog, in the meantime,
Leonard, you mentioned something very important, just. I just wish to repeat that. The right of the electorate in this country, the right of every citizen to cast a ballot is extremely important. It's
valuable, very valuable. You can't put
it's the only voice we have to say what we think of a government's performance. And this is why these elections are very important, because it seems like some people want to say the right of the electorate does not matter. Something else must matter first. No, get the right of the electorate mattered, get the right of the electorate respected, and then let's talk about other things. You cannot have a discussion if you cannot respect the will of the people in the ballot.
And that is it. Respect the will of the people in the ballot. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller.
The will of the people in the
Yes, good afternoon. Could you lower your volume on your radio, please?
There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon. Could you lower your volume on the phone, please? Yes, lower your volume on the radio, please.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
My point is, right, I listen to this program every day, but there's so much of mixed view about people. But my view about this whole thing, right, is that I was here at the one caller was saying about this race thing, right? I already in looking at race with this one thing, but I looking at the facts. The whole problem about this election that causing this uproar and previous election is that one ethnic group does not want the other to be leaders for them. And the Indians do not want a black leader to be over them. In spite of how much he might do or what good, they would never acknowledge the good. Right? And two, right, is that it's not that when the Indian government is in power, they're doing anything significant for the Indians that they would say, man, look, it's worth a fight or it's worth a while for an Indian leader being power. The concept is that they just want an Indian to rule them. They don't want a black person to rule them in spite of how good he is. Right? You could be doing so much things as a black leader, it would not be cited by the Indians. The people to know that the Indian rule them, even if the Indian got to push them under the gutter, they will accept that because the Indian ruling them. And if a black man take them as a leader and bring them out of the gutter and put them beside they can get washed off by the rain, they're not going to accept it. That is the mentality. We, as Afro-Guyanese, I notice how we operate. We would more sit down and say, and this is why it's enough to say, man, look, we don't care who rules. We got to live, we got to work, we got to work. And I take things with a smile and walk away in spite of who win. Right? But the Indians do not take things that way. The fight for this whole who be a leader or who must be leader or who must be president is not because that this present government is not doing good.
What is that then mindset? Is that they don't intend to a black person to rule them. They get one idea, black men were slaves, and we are descended of slaves, but they don't want no slaves to rule them. So in spite of how good it is, they mentalities that they don't want you to rule them. And that is what causing your pluralist conscientiousness. That is my opinion.
Thank you very much, dear sir. Yog, this evening...
Let me make this comment. Let me
Sure.
make this comment, Leonard. So I know race talks about race is something we're scared to run, but let me make this quick comment. Caller, look, somebody could equally say the same applies on the other side. So in your reference to one race, if you were to juxtaposition that race with another race, would it still be right? And Leonard and I have been on this program. We have said that maybe Guyana will change when the PNC puts up Indo-Guyanese as its presidential candidate and the PPPC puts up an Afro-Guyanese as its presidential candidate. Maybe then we'll see whether this thing is so true. But the final point to that, sir, the core of any of the political parties, Afro-Guyanese, whether they are for PNC and Indo-Guyanese, the core of that remains the core. But we got to realize it is the crossover votes. It's about 15 to 20,000 people in 2015, in 2011, in fact, when there was a minority government, 2015 when the government changed, and now in 2020, the Indian vote cannot get the PPP into office as the Afro-Guyanese vote cannot get the PNC into office. There is a great amount of person that is voting on issues, and that speaks to maturity as a changing nation. For tonight, Leonard, I just want to say very quickly, we have a nice mix tonight. We're going to have the perspective of the society in our room 592. We're having Pastor Patrick Finlay, Bishop Patrick Finlay, representing, maybe a thought from the religious community, how they see these elections. We are talking election talk. But we have somebody from that organization. We also have Mr. Mohammed Rafiq from the president of the Central Quarantine Chamber of Commerce of Business will be represented, and the diaspora will be represented by Mr. O.C. Rogers, who, as we know, is a media personality. So those three persons, and also Mr. Sayes Gunraj is going to come on to give us a 10 minutes update as to where we are with the recount, with the most recent announcement, from GCOM.
So I thank you very much, Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and we're going to be joining you 7:30 p.m. sharp to bring you room 592. So thank you very much for joining us, and do have a pleasant